seriously popular.
Welcome back to MAGAland. Hermione is not with us today, but luckily we have Charlie Spearing back. Thanks for being here, Charlie.
It's great to be back in MAGAland. We have so much to cover today, including the biggest game of the year this Sunday and all of the political interceptions.
We'll get into that and right more after this.
Exclusively on ESPN Plus, UFC 312, Saturday. Reigning middleweight champion Dricus du Plessis defends his title in a rematch against Sean Strickland. And Zhang Weili defends her strawweight title against undefeated Tatiana Suarez. UFC 312, Saturday at 10 p.m. Eastern. Buy it on ESPNplus.com/PPV.
Welcome to MAGAland.
Welcome back to MAGAland. We are on the cusp of the biggest American sports event in the nation, the Super Bowl, with the Philadelphia Eagles and the Kansas City Chiefs going head-to-head.
With us today to discuss what to expect at the Super Bowl is Daily Mail sports journalist Jack Bezants. Hey, Jack, thanks for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
We want to get right into everything Super Bowl, breaking down all the latest drama, President Trump's attendance, the Taylor Swift of it all. But let's start with Trump announcing that he's going to be attending. He is actually the first sitting president to attend the Super Bowl in history. So this is groundbreaking by the president. What has the political reception of Trump's appearance been? And how do you think it'll change up security dynamics and other aspects of the Super Bowl?
Yeah, it's going to be a massively significant moment when he appears there. Like you say, the first sitting president ever to go. I think the players themselves have been quizzed about it. You've got Travis Kelce on one hand, who said it will be an honor to play in front of the president. Likewise, Patrick Mahomes was very happy to receive some praise from Trump. Trump even today said that Kelce is the best tight end in history. I think the players have been looking forward to having such a figure there. I think in terms of the game day itself, those lucky enough to have a ticket are going to have to arrive quite early. I think there's going to be heightened security checks with Trump being there. And once the game's underway, it'll be a little bit of a war for airtime on the TV cameras between Trump and Taylor Swift.
Yeah, who's going to get booed, Trump or Taylor?
We'll see. It depends how many Eagles fans make it into the stadium, I guess.
It's very interesting to have Trump out already praising Patrick Mahomes as one of the greatest quarterbacks of the game. Certainly recalls to mind his first term when he had nothing but praise for Tom Brady and the New England Patriots, but now a new dynasty has rolled in. Do you think, Jack, that these teams will go to the White House, or whichever team wins the Super Bowl?
The Chiefs will. The Eagles, there's a little bit more history there, as we know. When they last won the Super Bowl, Trump ended up rescinding the invite when it appeared that none of the Eagles team were really planning on going to the White House. Since then, there's only 4 players from that Eagles team still on the roster now. It's a different team. The owner, Jeffrey Lurie, was asked about that this week. He brushed it off. He said, let's focus about winning on Sunday first. Far more questions about the Eagles than the Chiefs, I think.
I think that's right. Certainly, we have Jill Biden, former First Lady Jill Biden, also planning on attending the game. So it's really become quite a bipartisan executive affair.
Jack, I'm hoping you can unpack the big controversy that erupted earlier this week. We reported on it at dailymail.com. NFL fans calling for a Super Bowl boycott over the Black national anthem, which is still going to be played despite Trump win and return to the Super Bowl. What is going on here? Will NFL fans actually boycott watching? Is this a serious threat? Why is everyone so up in arms over the Black national anthem?
I don't believe people will boycott it. People who are unhappy that it's happening, when it gets down to game time, maybe they'll skip the beginning. But I think once the game starts, that's what they'll focus on. It's been a huge talking point in New Orleans all week. A lot of the reaction on the ground has been raising a wry eyebrow at the critics of it. We had Stephen A. Smith speaking this week saying that those criticizing the performance of the Black national anthem infringing on the fabric of America, which is a very powerful thing to say.
We actually have a clip of Stephen A. Smith talking about the Black national anthem. Let's tune in.
I understand that society can be very polarizing at times, but the reality is that segments of our population have a right to be prideful about their culture, their people. We have to be consistent with who we complain about. When the Jewish community tells us what they're passionate about and what they care about. Non-Jewish people don't try to tell them how to feel. Well, black people have a right to feel the way that they feel about whatever there's a black national anthem or anything like that. As long as it's not something that's harmful to America, that's not harmful to the nation itself or to any segment of our population, what's the problem?
So, Jack, what's your takeaway on this clip? What is he trying to get at with his response to the lift every voice and sing backlash?
It's a topic that he's increasingly comfortable talking about. We've seen him veer into the political debate a lot over the last few months. This Super Bowl is going to be potentially the most political ever, and I think that plays into Stephen A's hands quite a lot. Obviously, this nicks into a wider debate about his standing in the political world. His answer, the criticism of the criticism, is exactly what we'd expect. In terms of the atmosphere at the stadium, maybe fans will boo. A lot of people will want to see how Donald Trump reacts to it. Does he stand for it? It's one of many fascinating talking points going into Sunday's game.
I also want to show another clip, Stephen A. Smith, this week. He was asked about whether he'd run for president. He has a surprising take on it. Let's listen.
I'll still be doing sports, but my voice will not fade from the political landscape. You know, rather than talk about me being an elected official or running for the president of the United States, how about if I'm somebody with a voice as strong as Sean Hannity's, as strong as Mark Levin's, as strong as a Rachel Maddow's? How about that? As strong as the great one, Mark Levin. How about that? Because that's more plausible. However, I will confess, like I said, I have no desire to do this. But assuming that I'm well off, that I have gobs of money and money is no longer concerned, if the American people came at me and looked at me and said, yo, man, we want you to run for office, and I had a legitimate shot to win the presidency of the United States, I'm not going to lie, I'll think about that.
Jack, what's your takeaway from this? Can we expect a serious presidential run by Stephen A. Smith?
If one thing we've learned in the last 10 years in US politics, it's never say never. And the moment you count someone out is to count them in almost. I think Stephen A. probably doesn't have the appetite for the groundwork. And as he's said to Daily Mail this week, the sort of lobbying is not something that appeals to him. But you only have to see him on television for about 10 seconds to see the appetite for debate that he has. And when he's passionate about something, he can talk about it forever. He is making a very deliberate effort to position himself as more than just a sports commentator. We're a long way out from the next election. Let's see where it goes. But I don't think he's going to quieten down when it comes to talking about politics, that's for sure.
Democrats are always interested in trying to find the next great voice of the Democratic Party. Recall when they were in the wilderness the last time, they really looked to Oprah Winfrey as a possible presidential candidate. I'm not surprised that the vacuum of power is vaulting Stephen A. Smith up the chain, but I think Jack's right. I don't know if I see him actually running a campaign. I had a question about the Black National Anthem, and I don't believe that Trump has taken a position on the Black National Anthem. I think his number one issue is that every player stand for the actual national anthem. Is that the case based on all the writing and research you've done so far?
It's been a signature position for him, I think, in his first term. And really, obviously, it's a short amount of time now that his second term has been underway. I think this will be one of the main moments, one of the main public moments where we see how players react to the anthem. I think in the build up to it, it's been a major talking point across sport. The respect given to the national anthem. We saw ESPN not broadcast the Sugar Bowl national anthem in New Orleans a day after the New Year terror attack there, and that caused massive outrage. In terms of the players themselves on the field, we've seen Chris Jones, one of the key defensive players in the Kansas City Chiefs setup, has cried at the national anthem in the last two playoff games. At the moment, it's not the polarizing issue among players that it was a few years ago. However, it takes one person who might be unhappy with Trump being there or might want to underline a point on the biggest stage in the American sporting calendar to change that.
Trump famously said that I hate Taylor Swift during the presidential campaign, even though Taylor Swift is going to be in the box cheering for the Chiefs. And Brittany Mahomes notoriously liked some posts of President Trump, signaled some support for President Trump during the campaign. Do you expect any controversy over the different political alignments during the campaign now that we have the election over and we're back into the next 4 years?
I think the Super Bowl is really going to come down to, will Trump's Kansas City Chiefs be able to beat out Joe Biden's Eagles? It's a funny parallel. So we'll see. Those two have had some beef in recent months. So we'll definitely be keeping our eye on the split screen. And if one gets booed or one gets cheered, if there's any eye rolls, any icy moments, that's what we love to report on. Jack, wanted to ask you if you have any general predictions for the outcome of the Super Bowl, items to keep our eyes on. What should we be expecting on Sunday?
I'm gonna back the Chiefs to do it. I think they're gonna get the three-peat. That said, this is a very hard game, and nobody looks a fool for predicting the Chiefs and then the Eagles win. I think all eyes have to be on Travis Kelce as well. He comes to life in these big games. We've seen it in the playoffs. This will be a massive moment. What we've seen this week as well is the delicate position Travis Kelce is in the whole Taylor Swift, Donald Trump debate. Charlie, I think you touched on it when you said that Trump said, I hate Taylor Swift. We can probably assume that Travis Kelce wouldn't have voted for Donald Trump off the back of that. However, a lot of his Chiefs teammates support Donald Trump. Arrowhead Stadium, where the Chiefs play, is very close to the state line between Kansas and Missouri, who were both red states. A lot of his fans are Trump voters, so he can't upset that. He has to be mindful of that, and I think that's the very fragile line he's had to toe here. It's going to be, when are you going to go to the White House, and how is that going to be? It's going to be a fascinating story that unfolds the next few months. And alternatively, if the Eagles win, there's a whole backstory and a lot of history between the two there.
It's really a collision of pop culture.
Jack, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll be right back after this break.
Thanks for having me.
This episode is brought to you by Tic Tac. Minty, refreshing, classic. And it's not just the Tic Tac mints. It's the new track by Kanice with beats that'll leave you feeling as refreshed as a Tic Tac and a vibe that'll take you on a ride through 100 layers of flavor. Does it get any fresher than this?
Tic Tac, enjoy the bright side. That 100-layer joyride. Pop one, let's paint the town. Freshman flavors all around. Take a ride on a Tic Tac.
Pick up a pack of Tic Tac mints today.
Welcome back to MAGAland. We're going to get into Trump's big prayer breakfast yesterday. He had two major speeches where he discussed the state of religion in the country. He talked about his own near-death experience in the assassination attempt in July. He also had a major announcement promoting an anti-Christian executive order that basically would strip away any anti-Christian bias within the federal department. So this has caused quite the stir in Washington, D.C. Let me throw it to a clip of Trump speaking at the prayer breakfast where he made this announcement.
To confront such weaponization and religious persecution, today I'm signing an executive order to make our Attorney General, who's a great person, she's going to be a great Attorney General, Pam Bondi, the head of a task force, brand new, to eradicate anti-Christian bias. About time, right? Anti-Christian bias. Yeah, you never heard of that one before, right? But it's about time, isn't it, though, really? So many times you hear, but you don't hear the anti-Christian bias. The mission of this task force will be to immediately halt all forms of anti-Christian targeting and discrimination within the federal government, including at the DOJ, which was absolutely terrible, the IRS, the FBI, terrible.
This was a major moment. This is a huge signal coming from the Trump administration regarding religion in the country. What was your initial takeaway from Trump's announcement?
Right. It seems to be very much the same format that all of his events take. He's not just going to make a speech and deliver a prayer. He's going to sign an executive order to send a signal to different groups that he's meeting with that he's actually changing things. So this one in particular is focused on removing any signs of anti-Christian bias within the federal government. There's been a lot of complaints among Christians about some of the things that the Biden administration did to sort of wipe out Christianity and Christian symbols within the federal government. So this solidifies and strengthens any sort of protections that we already have under the First Amendment.
This also reminds me of an action that he took his first time in office. He established at the Justice Department a religious liberty task force under then Attorney General Jeff Sessions. I was actually working at DOJ at the time, and I was on the task force. It caused massive liberal outrage. They basically painted out this task force to be like a boogeyman coming for religion in every aspect of government, trying to insert itself. But in reality, it was looking at Justice Department cases, making sure there wasn't any religious discrimination against Christians, Catholics, Muslims, Jewish members of the country. It actually did a lot of good work where, especially in the Civil Rights Division, that has lots of cases that basically are targeting members of religious communities that are barred from getting to their places of worship, where you work, your workplace, or your neighborhoods, discriminating against a particular religion coming in and establishing a mosque or a temple. So it did some really good work. And I think Trump harping back to that order, I also think that this stemmed from the outrage that occurred after it was uncovered the FBI was targeting Catholics at Mass. They were being surveyed basically as, quote, domestic terrorists. The FBI ended up admitting that this did happen, which is a huge outrage, and it should be. Why would Catholics at church be considered domestic terrorists? It's truly absurd and outraging.
Yeah, that's so important, Kelly, especially that incident that you brought forward. That has been a huge thing among people of faith. They feel that they've been targeted by the Justice Department.
Trump also took major action this week, and we discussed it earlier, about potentially taking over the Gaza Strip. Since then, he's really riled up the Democrats, and Congressman Al Green has introduced articles of impeachment against him for, quote, ethnic cleansing in Gaza. Let's listen to this clip of him on the floor.
And I rise today, Mr. Speaker, with a to whom it may concern message. To whom it may concern, ethnic cleansing in Gaza is not a joke, especially when it emanates from the President of the United States, the most powerful person in the world, when he has the ability to perfect what he says. Ethnic cleansing in Gaza is no joke. And the Prime Minister of Israel should be ashamed, knowing the history of his people, to stand there and allow such things to be said.
Charlie, can Al Green actually bring impeachment articles against Trump? What's going to actually happen with this threat?
When we were at the Congressional Correspondents' Dinner this week, we spoke with Hakeem Jeffries asking him about this, and he pretended like he didn't even know about it. So he was really embarrassed about it. It's not something the Democrats want to be talking about right now. Democrats all around are trying to move forward, pretending that they're not actually going to kick off the impeachment messaging again because it worked so poorly for them during the last time that Trump was president.
It's interesting that you bring up Hakeem Jeffries being embarrassed about this, because a lot of his members are saying that Trump is committing ethnic cleansing with this Gaza takeover. So he isn't doing a good job of getting his own conference in line around the same messaging out of the Gaza announcement, which is quite telling. Do you think that Trump's actually committing ethnic cleansing with this order? What do you think the goal is now that it's been a few days since this sort of shock announcement gripped the country?
It seems like we've all been struggling to understand exactly what he's doing. Trump is basically telling the major countries in the Middle East, if you don't get in here and fix Gaza, I'm going to have to bring the United States in and fix it myself. I think a lot of Middle East countries don't want to see the United States in Gaza right now. So I think he's trying to goad them into getting in there, cleaning it up, making things safer, taking some of the refugees, and doing a lot to fix this situation.
Another department that's throwing the government into chaos is Elon Musk's Doge agency. They've really taken the country by storm this week with mass firings. Trump today said he wants to completely shut down USAID, and they put around 9,000 employees on notice for firings. Amid all of this, Elon got a highly coveted Time magazine cover where he's seated in the Oval Office behind the Resolute desk with the American flag and the presidential flag placed right behind him. It's caused quite the stir on social media. MAGA fans are reacting. Critics are reacting. Elon's commenting on it in roundabout ways on X. What's going on here? Do you think that this Time magazine is good or bad for Elon?
It's certainly trying to send the message that Elon is out of control and acting as the real president instead of Donald Trump. I believe that Elon's efforts here have certainly taken some of the heat off of Trump himself and put all the attention on Elon and his Department of Government Efficiency. It is a very interesting turn of affairs. It seems like right now that's the typical strategy from the left. Talk more about Elon Musk. Make it all about Elon Musk. Talk about how nobody elected Elon Musk and somehow he's ripping through the government and shutting down major programs and firing employees. We certainly saw Trump this week talking about Elon and saying Elon's not doing anything that he doesn't know about. That really shows that Elon still has the support of President Trump for now. And whether or not that continues, it depends how this controversy gets.
Elon put out an interesting tweet today after the cover was released saying, quote, "I love Donald Trump as much as a straight man can love another man," end quote. Do you think this is a way for him to show his allegiance to the president, a way for him to signal, hey, President Trump, I'm on your side. I'm not trying to usurp you in any way?
I think your analysis there is correct. I think Elon's trying to do the very best to demonstrate his loyalty to Trump because he has earned so much heat from this Department of Government Efficiency. Trump's actually happy to have Elon take the majority of the heat on this. He likes the idea of Elon, one of the world's richest people, is working for him to reduce, streamline, and cut government and make it more efficient.
The two have really been tied at the hip in recent days. Do you think that Elon Musk's going to go to the Super Bowl this weekend? My prediction is yes, he'll be there in the box.
We certainly saw Elon show up for the Army-Navy football game along with J.D. Vance back in the early days of the transition. We've seen him pop by Mar-a-Lago a couple of times, so I wouldn't be surprised to see Elon stepping in. But if Elon's trying to be a public figure, maybe that's a bad look for him to be partying at the Super Bowl in the executive suites as he's slashing the government. It would be a better look if he's in Washington sleeping in his office.
Well, that's it for MAGAland today. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in, and we'll be back with a new episode on Monday.
Remember to email us at welcometomagaland@dailymail.com. Follow us on Instagram at welcometomagaland.
If you like this episode, we think you'll love this.
This week on The Life of Bryony, are you having enough sex? Should you trade your husband for a boyfriend? Or just have both? I'm joined by author and sex educator Ruby Rare to explore non-monogamy, open relationships, and what we get wrong about love.
I'm having what I would classify as a moderate amount of group sex.
Listen to The Life of Bryony, available now.